I think we all know that selling and buying real estate can be stressful at times. And today we're going to talk about one of those times that's particularly stressful and how we're educating people about making it less stressful and more successful. So let's get after it. All right, Chris. So I know we're talking about one of the most stressful transactions that can happen with folks, and we're going to get to that in just a quick moment. I want to just quickly go over the market stats that we have. We're always reporting on that on a monthly basis. We got statistics through April here of 2023, year over year, and in each of those number categories is once again down. We're still kind of relating to the big markets that we had in 2022 and 2021 and that sort of thing. So number of new listings is still down from where it was last year, about 17%. We still have that low inventory challenge in the marketplace. That's dropping the number of new number of new pending sales down about 13%. And then the resulting amount is that we've got closed sales that are down about 22% across the market area. And the other thing that's down, by the way, encouraging for buyers, is a little bit more negotiability. So the average sales price to list price ratio that hung out at 100%, in some cases over 100% for pretty much a year and a half, is down at about 98% sales price to list price ratio. So not much more to report on that. Pretty much a stable market from that perspective. Low inventory. Buyers are looking for opportunities to come on the market. Folks are hanging on to their real estate for a variety of reasons, etc. So let's talk about what's happening in the world of stress in real estate. And what we've been having recently, just really over the last couple of weeks, is an increasing number of conversations with people about that ultimate move that I think we're all going to be facing, which is downsizing. A couple of the conversations we've had most recently have been not necessarily just with the folks that are going to be making that move, but the folks that are going to be involved in that move. And what I'm talking about is people that are, you're in my age, really, the adult kids that are having to lean in and help folks that are 20, 30 years older than we are right now. So you're talking about people in their 70s and 80s that are figuring out, how do you get rid of your stuff? Where am I supposed to move? Do I move back closer to their kids at home, etc.? And what we're finding is this is a global conversation. This is not a local conversation. We're having it locally. In fact, we've got our next two downsizing workshops are coming up in June. We've got one on the island. We've got one on the mainland. And of course, we're continuing to have direct Zoom consults with people individually, conference calls and that sort of thing. But we were with folks yesterday for 2 hours here on the island. And what were the key takeaways from your experience on that meeting, where they were like, what are they going through in their headspace? And these are folks that, as a primer, they've owned a home for 20 years. They've been in it locally, et cetera. And they had some interesting things to talk about, the timing that they're going through, sort of the why of their timing. So let's talk a little bit about what you heard there.
It was fascinating to talk to them. It was very enlightening on our side because they kind of talked about their story. They talked about the why. The husband went to the wife and said, "I think there's something we need to talk about." And what was her first reaction? She was nervous. Is there something you're not telling me? Is there a health issue?
Right.
And there was some concern there. And he's like, what it really is I don't enjoy mowing the yard as much anymore. And I'm worried about kind of what the next 10 years might look like. And if we don't prepare for it, what's that going to look like? And they just had friends that were trying to downsize into a community, and they didn't accept them, Chip, because they weren't healthy enough to come move into that community. And it scared these folks.
Right.
So there was a lot of anxiety that they were carrying. And they had so many questions. And what was neat to watch is, as we kind of talked about other situations and other people and timelines and things like that, we saw the stress just kind of evaporate away from them. And we were able to have some dialogue back and forth about what's most important. How do you get this process started? How do you engage with your adult kids that live in another state? When do you start that conversation? Who do you get on your team?
Right.
How early is too early? And it was fascinating to have that back and forth. And like you said, it went for 2 hours.
Yeah, and the reality of it is that they also need to know, like, what do we think about they've been in their home for 20, sometimes we talk to people 30 years. is my house market worthy? Is it ready? What about, she's asking about staging. Well, what is staging? I hear about staging on HGTV. Do I need to stage my home? And so we had a good concerted conversation about that. At the end of the meeting, this on-site consultation, they're basically coming away saying this was massively enlightening, massively educational for them. And they don't know when they're going to move. They don't know where they're going to move. They still need to go through that application process and make sure they get qualified, et cetera. So for us, it's so nice to have just a good, productive conversation. And that's what we talk about at these downsizing workshops and meetings is building your team, digging into a toolbox of resources, because they were like, hey, who do I use for a lender if I need a bridge loan? Talk about the chicken and egg. Do I buy first? Do I sell first? What's that all look like? And so it's just really reassuring, I think, to be able to go through those components. And like you said, just keeps bringing that stress down, because that's already going to be stressful, mainly and somewhat emotionally, because guess what? They love the house. Yeah. They've been in it so long. They love this house. It fits like a glove. Right. And now there's this next step. And now, as we know, change doesn't always come easy. So these are the kind of conversations we're having. It occurred to us that some of these conversations really need to be had with folks like us that are getting to a point where, like we said, where we're going to be on the team. And do we have to travel to help parents? And so we're talking to people that are absentee from our market area where their local parents are thinking and maybe needing to downsize. Maybe they're going to move back to closer to where they are, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, whatever it is. And so we're having an increasing number of conversations with those people. Chip, what do we need to be thinking about? What's this process? What resources can you make available, et cetera, so that we can be a little bit more prepared about this?
Getting together with the entire family, the planning, the having a timeline, to learning how the process works based on what other people in the same situation have recently done successfully. I mean, buying and selling real estate now is so different than it was 15, 20 years ago. So different. And there are options out there that can help make this kind of process and this kind of transition a lot more smoother. But you have to know about them, and then you have to plan for them.
Yeah. Well, we had conversations too about, come back to that chicken and egg, like, should we buy first? Do we sell first? Should I lease my house back? How much time do I need to close on the replacement property? Time's a big topic too, because the other thing about time is, and I know we've talked about this through the years, really, the low availability of vendors and contractors. If there's repair work that needs to be done, the timeline needed if you are going to get maybe a bridge loan or something like that, the timeline for figuring that out and pulling all your finances together and all that kind of stuff. It's all about time. So it's never too soon to have this conversation. In fact, the earlier we end up having these conversations, I think the happier we are, because it's frankly less stressful for us. Like, we've got time to build the plan, build the strategy, build the team, and figure out what this timeline is going to look like.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, if you're in the shoes, somebody who's in these shoes, someone that maybe needs to be thinking about downsizing. You've got folks that are thinking, gosh, maybe we ought to be considering helping them figure this plan out. This downsizing workshop, these downsizing conversations, these Zoom calls, et cetera, they are definitely for you. We're actually putting together a downsizing guide that we'll have developed here in the near term. But we just invite you to call on us anytime we can help locally. And frankly, if we can just help, generally speaking, with someone, you're trying to figure out, hey, what are the next steps what are the first steps maybe that I should be going through? We really invite you to call on us. And as always, we appreciate you watching our videos. We appreciate you being a YouTube subscriber. And we thank you for your time today.